My parents demanded I quit college to pay for my siblings' education. When I refused, they kicked me out. But what I did next destroyed them, and now they're begging for forgiveness. I'm 20 years old. I'm in my second year of university studying psychology, and honestly, I need to get this story off my chest because I still can't believe it actually happened. About 6 months ago, my parents basically asked me to quit college to pay for my siblings' education, and when I refused, they kicked me out of the house. Just like that. And the thing is, looking back, I think I always knew something like this was going to happen eventually. You know? Because I was never the favorite. Not even close. Let me backtrack a bit so you understand the context. I grew up in a family where my two siblings were always, let's say, the stars of the show. Ethan, my older brother, is a lawyer. Or well, he was studying law until recently. And Lily, my younger sister, was always the perfect princess who got straight A's in everything and played piano like she was born for it. And I was in the middle. Like the invisible daughter who did things well but never well enough for my parents to get excited. My mom would literally say things like, Ethan is going to be an amazing lawyer, or Lily is going to play at Carnegie Hall someday. But with me, it was more like, Sophia is very responsible. We can always count on her. Notice the difference? They were the ones who were going to conquer the world. I was the reliable one, the one who was there as backup just in case. My dad is a lawyer, works at a big firm downtown, makes good money, or so I thought. My mom doesn't work. She stayed home to focus on raising the kids, which basically meant she focused on raising Ethan and Lily, while I learned to do things on my own. I don't know. Since I was little, I remember that if Ethan needed help with homework, my mom would cancel everything to sit with him. But if I needed something, it was like, Sophia, you're old enough. You can figure it out yourself. I was like 8 years old the first time she told me that, I think. And with Lily, it was worse because she was the baby of the family, so anything she did was adorable and perfect. I could get a 9.5 and it was good job. But Lily got a 9 and there was a party at home. When it came time to apply to universities, my parents made it very clear that Ethan was the priority. He applied to expensive law schools, the kind that cost like $50,000 a year, and my parents didn't bat an eye. They said it was an investment in his future. I applied to state universities, got some scholarships, worked part-time during my senior year of high school to save money, and still, my parents acted like I was asking for the moon when I needed help with tuition. They'd give me the money, but always with comments like, I hope you appreciate the sacrifice we're making, or not all families can afford to send 3 kids to college. The thing is, I wasn't asking them for the same as Ethan. I was literally at a public university, living in the cheapest dorms, eating ramen half the week to save money. The summer before my second year, I worked full-time at a coffee shop and saved every penny I could. My parents didn't ask me to contribute to the house or anything, which I thought was a good thing. But now I realize they were probably already planning what was going to happen next. At the time, I thought I was finally finding my place. You know, away from home, with my own friends, making my own decisions. My roommate, Amanda, became my best friend, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could be myself without anyone comparing me to my siblings or making me feel like I wasn't enough. Then came September of my second year. I'd been in classes for like 3 weeks when I got a message from my mom saying they needed me to come home for the weekend for an important family meeting. I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe they were going to announce a vacation or something. I drove the 2 hours to the house that Saturday morning, and when I got there, the whole family was there. Ethan, Lily, my parents, all sitting in the living room with serious faces. I immediately knew something was wrong. Like you could feel the tension in the air. My dad got straight to the point, which I should have appreciated, but honestly, it made everything worse. He said they'd been reviewing the family finances and things were tighter than they thought. Ethan was in his second year of law school and needed 2 more years. Lily was going to start college the following year, and basically there wasn't enough money for all 3 of us. And then my mom, with that sweet and manipulative voice she uses when she wants you to do something you don't want to do, said they'd thought a lot about this and the best solution would be for me to take a gap year, or maybe 2, to work and help pay for my siblings' education. I sat there trying to process what they'd just said. Were they asking me to quit college? After everything I'd worked for to get there? My dad kept talking, using that lawyer tone he uses when he wants to win an argument, saying things like, "This is what families do, They support each other, and Ethan is at a critical moment in his career. We can't let him lose this opportunity. I asked why it couldn't be Ethan who worked, or why we couldn't all contribute a little, and my mom literally laughed and said that Ethan didn't have time to work because law school was too demanding, and that Lily was too young to work full-time. But I wasn't too young, right? I could sacrifice my studies, my future, my dreams, because after all, I wasn't the brilliant lawyer or the prodigy pianist. I was just Sophia, the reliable one, the one who always did what she was asked. My dad said I could look for a full-time job, that with my work ethic I'd surely get something that paid well. And in a year or two, when Ethan graduated and Lily was more established, I could go back to college, 1 or 2 years. As if it were that easy. As if I could just pause my life and start over when it was convenient for them. I asked exactly how much they needed. My dad pulled out some papers, because of course he'd prepared a complete presentation, and showed me numbers. They needed like $30,000 a year for Ethan, and they were planning for Lily to go to a private university that would cost another $40,000, $70,000 a year. And they wanted me, a second-year student with no career yet, to pay for it? When I pointed out it was impossible for me to earn that much working at something that didn't require a college degree, my dad said I could get 2 jobs, that I could live at home to save on rent, that I could make sacrifices. I looked at Ethan, expecting him to say something, anything, but he just stared at the floor. Lily was crying quietly, but nobody was paying attention to her. And that's when something clicked in my head. You know, that moment when you realize your family is never going to see you as a priority, that you're never going to be enough for them. I told them no, that I wasn't going to quit college, that I'd worked too hard to get there, and it wasn't fair for them to ask that of me. My mom immediately changed tactics, started with the tears and drama, saying she couldn't believe I was so selfish, that after everything they'd done for me, I wasn't willing to help my own family. My dad got more aggressive, said that if I wasn't willing to be part of the solution, then clearly I didn't value family, and that maybe I needed to reconsider my attitude. I told him my attitude was just fine, that what they needed to reconsider was asking one of their daughters to sacrifice her education to pay for their other children's. The argument got worse and worse. My mom said she'd always known I was the most selfish of her children, that Ethan and Lily would never give her this kind of trouble. Ethan finally spoke up and said something like, "Maybe we should think about other options." But my dad shut him down immediately, saying this wasn't negotiable, that they'd already made the decision and expected me to cooperate. I told them it wasn't their decision, that it was my life and my education, and that if they couldn't afford all of us, then maybe Ethan should consider a cheaper law school or work while studying like I did. That was a mistake. I can admit it. My dad exploded, started yelling about how dare I suggest Ethan lower his standards, that he was the future of the family, that he was going to do great things. I asked what I was then, if I wasn't part of the family's future, and honestly the expression on his face gave me the answer. He didn't say anything, just looked at me like, "Do you really need me to explain it?" My mom said I was studying psychology, that it wasn't as important as law, that I could study that anytime, but Ethan's opportunities were limited. I got up and told them I was leaving. My mom yelled that if I walked out that door without committing to help, that I shouldn't bother coming back. I waited a second, literally a second, to see if my dad or Ethan or someone was going to say something, was going to defend me, was going to say this was crazy. Nobody said anything. Lily was crying harder now, but when I tried to go near her, my mom got between us and said, not to upset her more. I went upstairs to my room, well, to the room that had been mine, and started packing. I didn't have much there because most of my stuff was in the dorm, but I grabbed clothes, some books, photos, things that mattered to me. I could hear my parents talking downstairs, my mom crying dramatically, my dad saying things like, "Let her go. She'll come back when she realizes she can't do it alone." I came downstairs with my suitcases and walked out the door. None of them moved to stop me. My mom was sitting on the couch with Lily, acting like I'd just died or something. And my dad was standing with his arms crossed watching me with that disappointed expression that used to make me feel 10 inches tall when I was a kid. I drove back to university crying the whole way. I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to stay, how I was going to pay for the next semester. The dorms didn't open until Monday, and it was Saturday afternoon. I called Amanda, and when I told her what happened, she told me to come immediately to her apartment. She lived off campus with 2 other girls, and they let me stay on the couch that weekend while I figured out what to do. Monday, I went straight to the financial aid office. I talked to my academic advisor, Mr. Wilson, and explained the situation. He was amazing. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done without him. He helped me fill out applications for more financial aid, connected me with work-study programs I didn't know existed, and basically put together a plan so I could finish the semester without my parents' help. There was also housing available on campus for students in difficult situations, and I managed to get a room in one of the older dorms. It wasn't luxurious. Like, the bathroom was at the end of the hall, and the walls were so thin you could hear everything. But it was mine, and nobody could kick me out. A few days later, I got a message from someone unexpected. My Aunt Margaret, my mom's sister. Margaret had always been like the black sheep of the family, you know, the one who followed her heart instead of doing what was expected of her. She was an artist, lived in a small apartment in the city, never got married, never had kids, and my mom always talked about her with that disappointed tone like, it's a shame Margaret never did anything with her life. But Margaret was happy, and that was more than I could say for my mom. Margaret told me she'd heard what happened, that my mom had called her crying, saying I was a horrible daughter who had abandoned the family. Margaret, being Margaret, immediately knew there was more to the story and called me to hear my version. I told her everything. No filters. And when I finished, she was quiet for a moment and then said, "Your mom has always been manipulative, but this is a new level even for her. She offered me money to help with expenses, told me I could stay with her during breaks if I needed a place, and basically became the family support. My own parents never were. The first few months were tough. I'm not going to lie. I worked 20 hours a week at the campus library, took a full course load, and tried not to think about the fact that my family had kicked me out for refusing to sacrifice my future. My parents didn't contact me even once, not to see how I was, not to apologize, nothing. It was like I'd ceased to exist for them. Lily sent me some messages at first asking how I was, but they were short, and I felt like my mom was supervising her, so eventually she stopped writing. The person who did contact me was Ethan, like a month after all the drama. He wrote me a long message, apologizing, saying he should have defended me, that he knew what our parents did was wrong. He told me he'd always known there was favoritism, but he'd never realized how bad it was until he saw how willing they were to throw me away like I didn't matter. Honestly, I didn't know how to feel about that. Part of me appreciated the apology, but another part thought, and where were you when I needed you? Why did it take you a month to talk to me? Ethan kept writing to me, and eventually we talked on the phone. He told me something I didn't expect, that he was thinking about leaving law school. Turns out he'd never wanted to be a lawyer. That was our dad's dream, not his. He wanted to be a teacher, work with kids, do something that felt like it had meaning. But our parents never considered it an option. They always pushed him toward law because it was prestigious and paid well. He asked me if I thought it was crazy to leave everything after 2 years, and I told him honestly it sounded like the first real decision he'd made in his life. A couple weeks later, Ethan told our parents he was leaving law school. You can imagine how they reacted. My mom sent me a series of furious messages blaming me, saying I'd poisoned Ethan against the family, that because of me he was throwing his life away. My dad was more direct, sent me a message saying I was a disappointment and a toxic influence on my siblings. I responded to them, for the first and last time, telling them that maybe if they'd treated their children like people instead of financial investments, none of us would be in this situation. Things got even weirder when other relatives started contacting me. Cousins I barely knew, aunts and uncles I hadn't seen in years, all with messages like, "We heard what happened. Are you okay?" My mom had apparently been calling the whole family, telling them her version of the story, in which I was the selfish and cruel daughter who had abandoned my family in their time of need and who had also convinced Ethan to ruin his life. Some relatives believed me. Others clearly thought I was the problem. Eventually, I stopped responding because honestly, I didn't have the emotional energy to be justifying myself to people who didn't even know me well. In December, my parents sent me another message, this time telling me they were selling the house and moving to something smaller. They didn't ask my opinion. They didn't offer to let me collect my things that were still there. They just informed me like, in case you're interested in knowing, the house where I grew up, in where all my childhood memories were, they were going to sell it, and I didn't even have a voice in it. Not that I had a legal right to have an opinion. I was already 20 and didn't live there, but the fact that they didn't even think to mention it to me until it was already decided hurt more than I want to admit. That night, I cried more than I'd cried in months. Amanda hugged me and let me let it out. And when I finished, she told me something I still remember perfectly. She said, "Sophia, you don't need approval from people who are never going to give it to you. You're doing an incredible job building your own life, and they're missing out." She was right. I knew it, but it was hard to accept. I blocked my parents' numbers that night. I couldn't keep receiving their manipulative and guilt-tripping messages. I needed peace to be able to focus on my life. Spring semester was better. I'd found my rhythm, my grades were good, I had a solid group of friends, and Margaret visited me every couple weeks for lunch and to catch up. Ethan also visited me a couple times, told me he'd started taking classes to get his teaching certificate, and that it was the first time in years he felt genuinely happy with what he was doing. He asked if our parents had tried to contact me, and when I told him I'd blocked them, he said it was probably the healthiest thing I could do. In March, I got a message from Lily. It was long, like 3 full screens, and it was basically an apology for everything. She told me she finally understood what had been happening, that our parents had been pressuring her so much to be perfect that she was having panic attacks, that she felt like she was drowning under the expectations. She told me that Ethan had talked to her about why he left law school, and that it opened her eyes about how toxic our family was. She said she missed me, that she regretted not being braver when I left, and that she'd understand if I didn't want to talk to her, but she needed me to know she was on my side. We talked on the phone that night for like 3 hours. Lily told me things I never knew, about how Mom constantly compared her to other girls, about how Dad told her that if she didn't get into a prestigious university, she'd be a disappointment. I realized she'd also been a victim of the same system, just in a different way. They put Ethan and her on pedestals so high that anything less than perfection was a failure, and they made me feel like I was never going to be enough, no matter what I did. We all lost, just in different ways. Lily decided she wasn't going to apply to the expensive private universities our parents wanted, that she was going to apply to state schools and get scholarships and basically make her own way like I did. Our parents were furious with her too now, but Lily said that after seeing how they'd treated me, she couldn't keep letting them control her life. It's funny, in a sad way, how the worst thing our parents did ended up being what united the 3 of us siblings, for real, for the first time. In April, my academic advisor called me to his office. I thought there was some problem with my financial aid or something, but it turned out to be the opposite. He told me the university was developing a new support program for students who came from toxic families or difficult situations at home, and that based on how I'd handled my situation and my psychology major, they wanted to offer me a paid position helping develop the program and eventually being a mentor to other students. I couldn't believe they were offering me this, like I was barely keeping my head above water, and now they wanted me to help other students. I accepted, obviously. The job paid well, better than the library, and also I felt like it was something that really mattered. I started attending planning meetings, sharing my experience, thinking about what kind of resources would have helped me when I needed them most. I also joined a support group on campus for students with toxic families, and honestly, it was a revelation to hear other people's stories and realize I wasn't alone, that there were others who understood exactly what I'd been through. Today, 6 months after my parents kicked me out, I can honestly say I'm better off without them. Not that it doesn't hurt, because it does hurt. It's probably always going to hurt a little knowing that my own parents were willing to sacrifice me for my siblings. But I also realized that their love had always been conditional. It depended on me doing what they wanted, on me not causing problems, on me accepting my role as the backup daughter. And I deserve more than that. Everyone deserves more than that. I have a genuine relationship with Ethan and Lily now, based on mutual respect and not on the toxic dynamic our parents created. Margaret continues to be my unconditional support, and the friends I've made at college are more family to me than my parents ever were. My grades are still good. I have a job I care about, and for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm living for myself instead of for other people's expectations. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd said yes that day, if I'd quit college and spent the next few years working to pay for my siblings' education. I'd probably be resentful and miserable, stuck in a job I hated, watching Ethan and Lily live the lives I helped finance while mine was on hold. And when I finally went back to college, if I did, I would have lost years I'd never get back. Last week, Lily sent me a message saying, Our parents had asked her if she knew how to contact me. Apparently, now that both Ethan and Lily are pulling away from them and making their own decisions, my parents are starting to realize their control strategy didn't work as planned. Lily told them no, that she had no idea how to contact me, even though obviously she does. I don't know if my parents will ever admit they were wrong. Probably not. And honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. I don't need their validation or their apology to move forward with my life. I'm 20 years old and I'm building something real. Something that's completely mine. It may not be the path my parents imagined for me, but it's infinitely better than the one they wanted me to take. And that's enough.